Have you ever walked into your local 99-cent store for a quick gift for your nephew or niece? You're trying to find something they would like, something that's recognizable, and then you come across this, or even this. It's become a hobby of mine to see the creative lengths some of these companies will go to make a quick buck. But imagine if we took this principle and applied it to $1 billion making intellectual property. This isn't something new. One of the most famous examples being the original Battlestar Galactica, which was accused of being a cheap copy of Star Wars. Or a more current example, the BBC America show Demons, which is just a blatant ripoff of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Yet one of the most memorable knockoffs is one that involved two giant companies getting into a fight like two kindergartners in the playground over a toy. I am talking about the X-Men. Mutant X. A show that, even though it was obvious in its deception, was still a surprise hit with comic book fans. So considering Deadpool and Wolverine should be in theaters around the time of this video, let us check out this X-Men TV show. But definitely not an X-Men TV show. As well as watching Ari Arad try and pull a fast one on the Fox network in the most uncreative way. But am I just exaggerating? Am I making a mountain out of an X gene? Well, let us find out in this episode of Gone, But Not Forgotten.
Before we continue with our video, here's a reminder to click the Store tab on any of our Joblo channels and browse our collection of the latest and freshest designs in our merch store. Go get you some.
In 1994, Marvel was going through some severe financial issues and began to sell off some of their movie rights. One of the studios they sold their rights off to was 20th Century Fox, who bought up the X-Men for $2.6 million, which with inflation would come out to be $5.5 billion today. As you can imagine, when that first X-Men movie made $296.3 million, the head of Marvel Studios, Ari Arad, was not happy. Here was this big studio making buckets of money, while Marvel got the scraps. So Arad had an idea. He would make an X-Men TV show, but not call it the X-Men. He brought in the president of Marvel Character Group, Rick Unker, to help him develop this show that would be called Genome X. The original pitch was that 20 to 30 years ago, a conglomerate called Genome X begins to experiment on embryos for a variety of reasons. In some cases, it's parents who want their child to have advantages or to exclude genetic defects that the family suffers from. Unfortunately, this has an unintended effect when those children begin to develop superpowers. These new mutants are now being hunted by that same conglomerate to avoid their illegal actions from going public. One of these mutants, by the name of Adam Zero, has super intelligence and decides to form a group of new mutants called Mutant X. This team's goal would be to save other mutants from the hands of Genome X. This team would consist of 4 mutants. First off, there was Brennan Mulray, aka Fuse, a former thief that had electrical powers. Then there was Emma Deloro, aka Rapport, a tele-empath who can sense and manipulate motions. Next, there's Shalimar Fox, aka Shadow Fox, a mutant with agility, super senses, and strength. Finally, there's Jesse Kilmartin, aka Synergy, who can alter his density, becoming intangible and increasing his mass in order to become invulnerable. They also wore black leather costumes and traveled on a superjet. Yet Arad said that this was not at all like the X-Men or a spin-off.
Right.
Fox would catch wind of this and quickly sued Marvel to stop production of the series. Marvel then would countersue to stop Fox from killing the show. Eventually, it would be ruled that Marvel could continue with the series, but with some caveats. First off, the code names of the characters had to be dropped. Adams' last name, Zero, was too close to Professor Xavier's, so that was changed instead to Kane, and he was no longer a super intelligent mutant. Now he was just a genius who created the genetic project that would create the mutants. Oh, and no leather costumes. By this point, the title had to be adjusted, and it was decided that the new title would be Mutant X. Side note, when the show was announced, a popular Marvel comic called Mutant X was still being made. Arad and the producers did not know this and had to let fans know that this was not an adaptation. So I'm pretty sure that didn't make Fox feel any assurance by Arad at all that this was not an X-Men show. But now that was resolved, the producers could continue getting Mutant X off the ground. Aha! I got you guys. No, instead Marvel would get sued by Tribune Entertainment, the producers of the series. They said Marvel lied and told them that this was an X-Men property in order to secure their involvement in the series. God, all of these people deserve a timeout. After all that was finally settled, casting would begin. For the commander of Mutant X, Adam Kane, veteran actor John Shea would be cast, best known for his role as Lex Luthor in Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman. But he has been acting since the 1970s and started on Broadway, even winning a Theatre World Award for his role in Yentl. Adam Kane was the leader and founder of Mutant X, to atone for his role as the chief biogeneticist of the experiments that created the mutants. He was kind and a father figure to the team. His former friend and nemesis was Mason Eckhart, played by stage actor Tom McCamus, the former head of security for Genomex, who was involved in an accident that compromised his immune system. So now he has to wear a wig, gloves, and synthetic skin. Basically, he winds up looking like an albino Jeremy Irons.
Let their blood rain from the sky!
Eckhart spends the first season hunting down Mutant X and the mutants that they are trying to protect. McCamus would quit at the end of season 1 to go continue his passion for theater, but would return for a few episodes in future seasons. As for the mutants on the team, it's revealed on the show that there are 4 types of mutants: fairy, elemental, molecular, and psionic. So each of our characters would fall into each of these classifications. Jesse Kilmartin was played by Forbes March, a soap opera star and former model who, after the show ended, would quit acting to go start his own business. Jesse was a molecular mutant who could control his density, so he could either become intangible or increase his mass to become invulnerable. He was the computer expert and was probably the most sensitive member of the group, always willing to be there for his team members. Shalimar Fox was played by Victoria Pratt, who was also a model who just happened to transition into acting. Since the show ended, she has modeled a bit, but mostly does small roles here and there, as well as writing a detective novel. I have not read it myself, but it's got some good reviews on Amazon. Shalimar was a feral mutant who had enhanced strength, speed, and senses. She also had a healing ability and would eventually develop a danger sense. She was very protective of the members of the team, since she was rescued by Adam long before she joined Mutant X. Brennan Mulray was played by Victor Webster, an electrical elemental mutant. At the time, Webster was another soap opera actor before he joined the series. Since the show ended, he's become a pretty big star in the Hallmark TV movie scene. The character of Brennan was a former thief. He was the bad boy with a heart of gold in this group. And these kinds of characters were quite common in the early 2000s. So, not much to say about his character. The last mutant of the team was Emma DeLauro, played by Lauren Lee Smith. Smith was also a former model turned actress. I'm starting to see a pattern here. Before the show, she had done a few small projects, as well as a TV movie. But since the show ended, has probably had the most impressive career out of the entire cast. She has had steady work in both TV and film. Check out her IMDb page for yourself. This woman is a machine, who constantly books work and gives solid performances. Anyway, Emma was a psionic mutant, with the ability to feel and manipulate emotions, as well as developing other mental powers at the end of the first season. In the pilot episode, the character is used as the viewer's introduction to mutants, as well as their enemies, and the setting of the series. However, Emma was eventually killed off and replaced by Lexa Pierce, played by Karen Cliché, whose power was that she could manipulate light. The show's pilot is a perfect example of what to expect from the show, in all the wrong ways. Emma is being chased by X thugs when she bumps into Brennan and shares a moment, then runs off and gets cornered by them, only to be rescued by both Jesse and Shalimar. This is when we see the first of many flaws in this series, the wire work. Oh man, my god, did the producers sure love wire work on this show, and it never looked good. Maybe it could have worked had it been shot differently. The camera held the shot for way too long, which broke the illusion of the scene. I wondered why they even bothered to hide the wires. It was pretty clear that whoever directed this pilot had never shot action scenes, because a lot of bloopers would make it into the finished cut. Which is a shame because the stunt coordinator and actors seemed to be very dedicated to these action scenes. The show's fight coordinator, Paul Rapofsky, worked in Hong Kong cinema and even appeared in some kung fu movies, one of which starred Jet Li. In the DVD extras, Rapofsky was interviewed about the show, and you can see the dedication he had to presenting some good action for Mutant X. Paul said he worked weekends and long hours to ensure that this cast looked good while fighting off the bad guys. It just seems like a waste of Rapofsky and his team's hard work because of these bad directors. For every scene that's like this, there would be 5 that were just like this. The editing was horrible as well. Who needs shaky cam to make you throw up? Just constantly do back-to-back scene transitions, as well as zooming in and out of a shot every 30 seconds. Yeah, that sounds great! Anyway, Emma is rescued by Mutant X and transported to their secret base, where she meets the rest of the team, acts like a brat, and winds up running away. During all this, Eckhart learns the Genome X founder, Dr. Paul Breedlove, has decided to write a statement exposing what he and his company have done. Many of you may recognize the actor who played Breedlove and his connections to the X-Men universe. You don't? Well, how about I give you a clue? Just listen.
When Genome X was conceived, we saw ourselves as pioneers in a new frontier of knowledge.
Is this your answer? This horror? After all the suffering we both have seen, you wish me to wage war on 6 billion humans?
Yep, that's Cedric Smith, the voice of Professor X from X-Men, the animated series. Pretty cool, huh? Well, anyway, Eckhart has him killed. Yeah, it sucks, I know, but at least his death scene was hilarious. Meanwhile, Brennan and his accomplices rob a bank. While he and one of his partners are breaking into the vault, his friend is doing an interpretive dance. Those poor people. Just look at the horror on their faces of watching this man attempting to pirouette. As expected, Brennan is backstabbed by his partners, who report him to Genome X, and he gets captured while trying to run away with Emma. Emma and Mutant X then break into Genome X and free Brennan and the other mutants from their clutches. He joins the team, and the Mutant X lineup is finally complete. The first season of this show would deal with the team thwarting Genome X and helping fellow mutants. At the end of the season, though, Eckhart was captured by Gabriel Ashlock, played by Michael Easton. Gabriel was Patient Zero, the first mutant that Genome X ever made. Gabriel has all of the mutants' powers, and when we introduce him, he is seen leading a cult of mutants. Like all good cult leaders, Gabriel was a narcissist who suffered from a god complex. He's also a bad kisser, and looks like he just bit into a lemon. So at the beginning of the second season, Gabriel would serve as one of the main antagonists, but that would end toward the first half of Season 2. However, at the end of Season 2, Emma is killed abruptly. Fans have wondered for years why she would leave the show so suddenly, but she would eventually explain the reason at the London L-Word convention in March 2008. You see, Lauren Lee Smith said that she was unhappy with the show for a variety of reasons. She said that the show had started great, with the producers wanting to focus on more interesting topics. But halfway through the first season, the budget began to shrink and the scripts kept getting worse. It was hard work, and then she kept being asked to wear less and less clothing. The lowest moment would come when a producer said, "Maybe if you start to wear a bikini throughout the whole thing, we can get more people watching." So Lauren asked to be let go, and she thankfully was. According to Smith, John Shea was also unhappy with the quality of the show and decided to quit as well. But he was still contracted to appear for a certain number of episodes. So in the beginning of season 3, his character would be presumed dead, but he eventually returns towards the end of the season. Season 3 had another X-Men alum, George Buzza, as the voice of the mysterious contact for the shadow organization known as the Dominion, whose goal was to control technology, with genetics serving as one of their highest priorities, so that they could control the mutants. Now, in my opinion, this show had some really crappy directing, editing, dialogue, and uninspired plots. But it was still a hit. The ratings were great, and the show had a devoted fan base. So you can imagine the fans' frustration when they ended up canceling the show. Not only that, but it was the worst way that a show could be canceled, on a cliffhanger. As someone who watches a lot of TV, I can tell you that the worst thing a series can do is end on a cliffhanger. It's horrible to become invested in a show and then poof, it's gone, leaving you with so many unanswered questions. It also feels a little egotistical to be so confident that you're going to be coming back to clear up that hook. However, it's not the showrunner's fault that the network may be gaslighting them when they know the show won't come back. Other times, it's done out of desperation to prove to the bigwigs that they will have guaranteed viewership for the next season. I still can't believe that this is a thing today. I recently saw this great show called Bakes on Netflix, and it ended on one of the most intense cliffhangers I have seen in years. Anyway, the fans of the show campaigned for it to return, but what they didn't know was that Mutant X was not canceled because of bad ratings. The ratings were great. It was even renewed for a 4th season. No, the real reason for the cancellation was that the show's production company, Fireworks Entertainment, was sold off for parts. It's a complicated story having to do with mergers, promotions, and people getting canned. It's boring, trust me. You're not missing anything by me not talking about it in this video. So should Mutant X come back? Well, I don't know. You see, rewatching this series for me made me want to drill a hole into my head. I could barely get through one episode of this. But there were people who did love this show, and I always say that if you love a show and want it to come back, then I think it should. It does have some potential though. The idea of eugenics and all the baggage that it brings is something that sci-fi does really well. But if you're interested in checking out this show and telling me that I'm dead wrong and dumb, which let's face it, I probably am, then you can watch it for free on Tubi. So pick up your remote and tune into the secret signal for the underground and enjoy the ride. Just make sure you try to avoid talking to an albino Jeremy Irons. I'm Jesse Shade speaking on behalf of David Arroyo for Joblo.com, and thanks again for watching our show. If you like what you see, please subscribe to the Joblo Originals channel. Tell all your friends who like this sort of content, and turn on the bell and receive notifications for all our latest videos. We are an independent company that appreciates all of your support, and we will see you next time for the next episode of Gone, But Not Forgotten.